Good day, RC enthusiasts. Today I want to go over the Alpha 4-shoe clutch and just kind of show you guys how I maintain it, how you can adjust the different settings to make it perform how you want it to on the track, and all the above. So first step, we got an engine. This one just came off of a 45-minute A main. And a couple things I can show you while I have it in my hand even. One way you can check your compression to see if it's still really good is you can hold the flywheel and you kind of want the engine to be able to hold itself up. If it'll hold itself up, your compression's still really good. If it just completely flops over immediately past its compression point on its own weight, then you might want to look at getting your engine pinched, this sleeve on it. So another thing I can show really quick is your Endbell play. So you can see right here, I got about 1 to 2/10 of tick play back and forth. This is adjusted with the shims, either behind the bearings or at the end here. And just that tiny tick right there is exactly what you want. Another thing where I could have done better would be where I have the shims. I have some shims that are here behind the bearing, and then I have shims, I have one that's out here. Now if you look where my shoes are, they're basically kind of showing there on the inside of that bell. So I could actually put a couple of these shims here on the outside to move the bell in just a little bit more to have better shoe coverage. And then one final thing I want to note on clutch bells, there's options of vented clutch bells that allow a little bit of airflow and non-vented. Generally with all aluminum shoes, a vented bell is preferred because it will allow a little bit better cooling of that aluminum and allow the clutch to not fade over a long run. And then a closed bell is better when you're using like a Teflon or a plastic type shoe, as it will also keep out some of the extra dirt and allow those shoes to last longer. So now we'll get down to the nitty gritty. We'll take this apart, take a look at it. I'll show you how I maintain it. So I have these Tamiya non-scratch pliers that I use to grab the flywheel. We'll take that off. And we'll start setting things aside. So there's that one shim that I had on the outside. And we got our couple of bearings. And then you can see the number of shims that I was using on the inside here. So obviously the number of shims you use is all dependent on your engine, your setup, and everything else. So that's something that you always want to have some 5x7 clutch shims available to your disposal to be able to shim your clutches properly. So we'll take a look at it. Now, again, I cleaned these shoes before the 45-minute main. They'd already had probably an hour more runtime on them. They definitely still have the thickness to be still really good. Now what I would do, say I'm going out just to practice right now. I use an X-Acto for everything. I would actually just take an X-Acto and kind of clean up the edges. Kind of scrape them off. Try to keep it in frame for you. So take that, and then up here, obviously keep your fingers out of the way, but as you can see there, kind of get it cleaned up a little bit, get the major burrs off of it, and then I just do that on all four. Now, if I'm preparing, like I am now, for a larger race for my next event, you know, we'll do a full teardown of it and clean them up a little bit better. To do that, you can use like a Dremel, you can use a sanding drum, or I have this little bit here that does a good job, and just kind of scrape the edges. So we'll take the clutch off here, loosen the clutch nut. Again, all these tools available at LutzRC.com. We got this 4-way wrench here, as well as the clutches themselves. Alright, we got a flywheel puller. Sometimes they stick and you need to pop them off. Alright, so there we have the clutch. Then we can obviously clean off the engine. Not pertinent to this video though. Alright, so then as far as the clutch goes, one thing this Alpha 4-shoe clutch has is they offer a really cool tool to help you either disassemble or assemble it. So whichever way you're doing, so right now we're going to disassemble, so we have the disassemble side facing upwards. and then we'll set it on top. And you can try to do it by hand if you're really strong. You can really hold on to the flywheel. And you basically just push down and twist. And it pops up the face. And you can pop it off. So hopefully that was visible there. Now something else to check once you have it off, or even before you can check it. Make sure that the shoes move up and down freely. You can see that one's actually sticking a little bit. That one's nice and free. That one's free-ish. So these two are kind of sticking. So I'll show you how to rectify that issue. So make sure you also have these tiny little shims on the top. So don't lose these 4 shims. And then we'll take these off. So things to look at this point. Take a towel, kind of clean off the flywheel and the pins. You know, sometimes you just get a little bit of dirt in there, and that rubbing away from the dirt into the pins and kind of scuff them up a little bit. So we'll kind of rub our nail over it, make sure they don't feel too indented. So I think these will be okay. So then the other thing to have would be a 2.1 drill bit. And what you can do is just take that, run it through the shoe hole really quick, and you can see nice and free. So if you ever have that sticking issue, this will help you get your shoes to last longer and your clutch to perform properly. Just run a 2-1 bit through them really quick. That one had a little bit more of a burr to it. But now we're nice and smooth. Alright, so that part is complete. And now we can clean up the shoes. So the other way, like I mentioned, you can see here a little bit of burrs, how it comes over the edge there. So that's the stuff we're wanting to clean up. Now I still personally would be using, get it out here so you can see it, an X-Acto on this, kind of just doing it away from myself and just kind of cutting it. Now a tip of using the X-Acto though is not to use a brand new one. A brand new one can sometimes like just kind of cut into the aluminum a little too easily, and that doesn't bode well for it to kind of just glide over and take off the outside burrs of it. So I'm trying to show this, guys. Got the camera sitting in front of me, so I'm trying to work around it and keep my hands out of the way at the same time. But anyways, you can see you can kind of 45 the edge here. Cleaned off all the burrs on the front and 45 that edge. And then if it's bad, you can kind of clean up the tops here too. So I always feel like a dentist when I'm using my X-Acto for everything. So another feature of the Alpha clutch is they have this little hollow pin that goes through here. It serves a couple of purposes. It kind of helps cooling a little bit, and it also allows the spring to ride on that pin so it doesn't wear out the clutch at all. And you also notice the flat face of the clutch shoe itself, which gives better contact on the bell and it leaves a flat surface on the bell, doesn't leave a groove like some of the 3-shoe type clutches do, where they have that groove in the middle. So now that we have all that finished up, we're just kind of wiping off any excess dirt, cleaning it all up. I guess I'll show you the Dremel part of it. So if you want to use a Dremel bit, there you go, same purpose, or same result. You get the little 45 edges there, and the gunk off the face, and you're good. So I'll finish up the last couple in my preferred method, using my X-Acto. Alright, so then There's obviously lots of options that you can do for a clutch, and Alpha gives you a good little cheat sheet here of the different settings and how it comes. So it comes out of the kit with 2 hard and 2 medium springs on the high setting. So how this chart works is the higher up on the chart you are, the harder the clutch engages and the later it engages. So this is generally good for higher traction. And then opposite of that would be as you go into the softer springs and or like the lower setting on the clutch face. You can see there's a H and an L, a high and a low. So that's kind of like the amount of tension that is put on the springs. As you go down, the clutch will engage earlier at a lower RPM, and that's a lot of times better on a looser track where you have a lot of wheel spin. That'll help the clutch not to hit so hard. You won't have as much wheel spin, hopefully improve mileage and drivability. So what I've actually been doing lately is like the 4 hard springs in the low setting. Now, I don't totally maybe agree with how this is laid out when you go from the high to the low. I think maybe like the 4 hard springs on a low setting would be kind of more down here versus say even 2 hards and 2 mediums on a high I think would be up a little bit higher, but it gives you a general idea of where you can be and things you can try. It's kind of cool. And then it gives you a whole exploded view as well of how the clutch goes together. Alright, so we're going to put it back together now. Finish cleaning off the flywheel here. Alright, so lots of little parts that you got to watch out for. You got this little bushing, little hat type bushing here. It goes into the spring. And this will seat into your shoe. And then you slide that over the pin. Okay, do that for all of them. So right now I'm just going to put back on the 2 hard, and actually right now this clutch does have all 4 hards like I mentioned. Now, one thing to note, if you do want to run a mixture and you're running 2 and 2, like 2 hards and 2 moderates, you run the 2 hards opposite each other and the 2 moderates opposite each other. If you're doing 3 and 1, it doesn't matter, you just do 3 and 1. But anytime you're doing 2 and 2, it's suggested to do opposite each other, because that will allow, like when it hits the clutch, it's not all engaging on one side of it and then the other side's coming in at a different time. But if you're doing opposites on 2 and 2, you'll still get like a halfway engagement where it'll be equal on both sides and it won't be kind of tilting the clutch in a certain direction. Clutch bell. So, and we'll slide these all on here. Once you have all 4 shoes on, you can put those little tiny shims back on top. Make sure you don't lose those. They're just a good little spacer to keep proper spacing. And so the shoes don't really rub up against the face of the cover there. Okay, now to reassemble. So again, we have the disassembly side. This is the assembly side. So whatever's facing up that you can read is what you're planning to accomplish with it. Then you got the arrow telling you which way to turn it. So you can kind of set the little cover on, push it in most of the way. You can see there's still a little bit of a gap there. And you can see the arrows already showing like which direction you're going to be turning it to assemble it. It's the same way as the assembly side. So slide the tool on top, it'll seat in, hold the flywheel, and then start to turn it. And sometimes you might need a tool to hold the flywheel. But there it went. So it just twisted. It twisted into the high setting right there. So you can see that the pin would be going in the H. So this would be maximum stiff setting. All hard springs on the high setting. We're going to go to the low setting, because that's what I've been running recently. And you got to be careful because it'll slide right past the low if you don't push down once you get to it. So get to the low, press down, and there it's all engaged. So you can see the pins in the L setting. And then you can take a flat blade screwdriver if you like. You can check all your shoes. Make sure that when you lift them, they snap back and you hear that snap. This is another way you can check when you first have it on your, when you take your clutch bell off and you just want to see, make sure the springs in the shoes aren't binding at all. Just make sure everything, you lift it really quick and snap it back. You want it to be able to snap. If it doesn't snap back, it doesn't close all the way, you want to take that 2-1 drill bit, and that's when you want to clean out those shoe holes. So there we go. We are rebuilt and ready to reassemble. And so for that, I guess we'll demonstrate that as well, since we are here. So I don't put any Loctite, or if I do, if there's going to be like if I'm at the AMA at the Worlds or something, or Nationals, and it's a really big race, you know, I'll put the Loctite. I haven't really felt the need for it. I haven't had an issue with it, but I'll do it like for extra safekeeping at a really, really big race. But generally, things to be careful of. Whenever you don't have the clutch tight on your engine, never push on the crankshaft and turn it, because it'll actually have the crank pin touch the back plate and it'll scar it and maybe leave metal shavings in your engine. So I always pull out on the crankshaft and push in on like the collet to kind of make sure it's always pulled out. And then same thing, I'm pulling out on the crankshaft while I'm putting pressure on the flywheel here. And we'll put the nut on. Kind of go until it snugs up. And then have liberty to really crank down on this. Don't be afraid of it. All right. So we're tight. And then we'll reassemble. Put my shims, and I'll adjust my shims this time to maybe do it more properly. So I'll take a couple of them off that I was using before. I'll clean off my clutch bearings, kind of give them a quick feel. Oops. It still feels okay. Be good enough for practice type thing. And I'll just kind of wipe them off. And then wipe off the inside of the bell. And the only chemical I'll ever use on that really is generally like a simple green. You can see the black that'll come off of it. Mixture of the dirt and aluminum. And okay, so we'll set that on. Show you things to look out for. So first, you got to make sure that you have enough shims behind that first bearing. If you don't, when you hold the clutch like this and you spin it, you got to make sure that your clutch bell isn't touching the face of the clutch itself. So that's one spacing. So if it spins freely, you don't hear any noise, you're good with that spacing. Then obviously you're trying to take up this gap right here. So we'll put those shims out here. And you can see that this spacing is better for clutch shoe coverage than what I previously had. Okay. Still have that little tick, 1 to 2 tenths of play. But now you can see that the shoes are completely covered. You don't see the shoes on the outside of the bell there. So that would be better coverage. And that's it. So that is your Alpha 4-shoe clutch. This is how it comes out of the package, already built up for you. You get a collet and the nut and all the different spring choices, soft, moderate, and hard, to totally dial it into your preferences. So thanks for watching, guys. Alpha Plus, LutzRC.com here in America, or your local distributor. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.